afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to MandoLessons Live. I hope you're all doing well. Hope your Saturdays are keeping you playing music. I think it's gonna be a hot one here in Oregon today. Oh, not so bad. No, in the 70s. It was in the 80s the last couple days, which was a little much for me, but maybe I'll try to get outside today. Partly cloudy. I like the sound of that. All right. I just woke up. Hope you are all doing well. If this is your first time, welcome. That was a little bit of The Road to Boston to start us off. We're going to jam on that tune a little bit at the end. Doesn't matter if you know it or not. We'll just get your fingers moving at the end of the hour. And that's what this is. This is an hour of Q&A. So if you have any questions, throw them in the chat. Definitely, if this is your first time here, introduce yourself in the chat if you so desire, because there's a great group of folks waiting to become your friends. And speaking of, who do we have for friends in the chat today? We have Mark, Woody, Ursanos, Uncle Bobby, Dan's Tune, Jim, C Drive, Betsy, Alan, Sherry, Barbara. Amazing. Great to see you all here. We got folks from all over Minnesota, Southern California, Northern California, Southern California, Georgia, Indiana, Nashville, London, Vancouver Island. Hey, Sabrina, first timer. Amazing. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, so the way it works is it's an hour Q&A. If you have a question about playing the mandolin, doesn't matter if it's a beginner question, an intermediate, advanced. It doesn't even necessarily need to be about mandolin. Just could be about music and like learning how to be a musician and hang out with your friends playing music. Or maybe you're in a band and have questions about that. I'm here to do my best to help you. And if you want to hear a tune, feel free to throw out a request. I may or may not know how it goes, but I'll do my best. And it's often hard for me to remember how tunes go, especially with the pressure of sitting in front of a bunch of y'all and trying to remember tunes. But I love it. That's why I do it as often as I can. So, everyone enjoying the weather? Yes. The weather's great out here. It was a little hot, but now it's back in the 70s. It could, honestly, for my 2 cents, could just stay in the 70s every day, never get any hotter than that, and I would be a happy man. Barbara says, I need a beginner lesson. Well, you are in luck. If you have any particular questions, or maybe you're just watching to sort of get a feel for the mandolin, definitely throw them out there. No question too beginner, no question too advanced, all that sort of stuff. But there's a whole beginner series on my website that takes you from never having touched the instrument before. It's also on this YouTube channel. So if you subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out the past videos, there's a whole beginner series. It's all free. That'll get you going from never having touched the instrument to playing some chords and a tune and a song and everything you need to know. And then from there, what I always recommend people do, if you want to learn to play tunes like The Road to Boston that I was playing earlier, it's a great first tune for a lot of folks, especially at Maine Fiddle Camp. If you want to learn stuff like that, there's a whole section of my website and this YouTube channel called Fiddle Tunes. They're tunes that are traditionally played on the fiddle or the violin, but we as mandolin players, because we got the tune the same way, we get to play them all too. Except we don't need to worry about how to work a bow, which I am very grateful for. All right, Ursanos is awake. Amazing. I almost slept through it this week. Dan says, how are you getting even better at the mandolin, even faster, and notes are more articulate? Well, I appreciate that sentiment. I try. I don't know. I feel like I've definitely, I feel personally, and I think this is something everybody feels about their own playing is, we don't see the long-term process because we're stuck sort of seeing every little time we pick up the instrument and saying, oh, this time I pick up the instrument, I'm not any better than last time I picked it up. But then, you all see me every week or so or month or so, however often you see me on these live streams, or I see you as students either at camps or in one-on-one stuff or just kind of following a couple of you have YouTube channels that have got great contributions on it. And I see you all getting better because I get to see that thing where, you're kind of grinding away day to day. It's a fun grind. I'm not a big fan of the masochistic grind of not having fun while doing what you're doing just in order to get better. That's not what it's about. But finding the most fun way to do all the repetitive stuff that you need to do to slowly get better. And then it definitely is easier to see improvement from an outside eye, which can be a good opportunity and reason, and something that sort of this channel doesn't do, is if you get either a picking buddy or like an in-person lessons person, they can really see that in a way that I don't get to because I can't keep up with you all. There's too many mandolin players out there. If I had the pleasure of seeing all 100,000 people who subscribe to this channel, that would be amazing. I would love to see that, but it's not a sustainable solution. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I appreciate the thing about articulation, Dan, because I've been really inspired lately there's a great new bluegrass band that some of you are probably familiar with. In fact, I know some of you are because I've already been chatting with you about it. Mighty Poplar, who I just saw in concert. It was actually the last show of their tour, so I can't say go see them on the road. But a great new sort of all-star bluegrass band of Andrew Marlin, one of my favorite mandolin players ever, from Mandolin Orange, now Watch House, now Mighty Poplar. Not that that's the same band, but Mighty Poplar is Andrew Marlin, Chris Eldridge and Noam Pikelny from Punch Brothers, and Greg Garrison, who used to play with Punch Brothers, on bass. Who am I missing? I think a rotating fiddle player, either Alex Hargraves. It was John Mylander, amazing fiddle player, when I saw him a couple days ago. Am I missing anybody else? I think that's the whole group, but again, I just woke up. Anyway, they're awesome. Check out their great new record, Mighty Poplar. Really good song selections. Andrew's one of my favorite singers and favorite mandolin players, and I've really been inspired by him lately because I love, as anyone who's been here for a little while knows, I love playing tons of double stops. If I'm gonna play a tune like Road to Boston, there's the skeleton of the melody. A lot of times I'll play that tune with lots of chords, and that's fun, and I really enjoy that. But also, it is fun to be kind of more articulate, and I was really impressed and sort of inspired by Andrew's playing when I saw him live. He definitely has a lot of double stops in him and in his playing, but there's always a really clean, articulatory, a very articulate melody line that sometimes he'll just play the melody and it has a great weight to it. And I feel like sometimes the mandolin can be a little plinky. It's a kind of high-pitched, high-strung little instrument, and a lot of times I feel like maybe I'm compensating for its kind of thin quality by adding in a bunch of other double stops and chord melody ideas and stuff like that. But Andrew really makes it work on a single note basis. So I'm trying to do a little bit more of that. Kind of pull some of the double stop ideas out of my playing. Yeah, it's always kind of a balance. I feel like I'm heading back towards the middle. I'm a big fan, as many of you have heard me say, of going too far, trying out all the options, play too quiet, play too loud, play too slow, play too fast, and then just through experimentation and repetition, work towards that middle ground that feels best for you and what you like the sound of. Anyway, there was a nice little tangent to start off the stream. And from Scotland, amazing. Thanks for joining us. Ursina says, looking to take the Eastman into a local luthier to get it checked out. The truss rod needs some adjustment. Yep, that's usually a fairly easy thing to do. I don't like. Some people will work with their own truss rods. I occasionally do, but yeah, I'm always a little like I never know which way to turn it, so I always bring it to somebody for truss rod stuff. And yeah, I feel like truss rod is tricky because sometimes it's the answer, but sometimes it's sort of like in sort of, I don't know, popular guitar lore. It's sort of like, oh hey, your action too high, like turn the truss rod. Action too low, turn the truss rod. That's not really what the truss rod's for. More about like straightening out the neck and getting everything lined up so you don't have a big scoop in the middle of your neck. Yeah, often you can see if you like sight down the instrument and if you can like see down the neck, and the neck looks particularly swoopy one way or the other, that can be a truss rod issue. But yeah, bring it in. It's usually not a super expensive thing. If it is just a truss rod, it's a pretty quick thing for a tech who deals with truss rods all the time to just loosen all the strings, turn the truss rod, tighten them back up. Takes a little while to settle in, but it shouldn't be an expensive job. Or they can at least tell you like, oh, this isn't actually a truss rod thing, it's something else. But I hope you get it sorted. I've got some mandolin. This mandolin's being a little weird. I sussed it out, and I like fret 1 to like 11 on my A string. I don't know if it like the A string is too high at the nut, and that's like pushing things sharp. But when I play, my octaves, they're a little out of tune, and I was looking at it with a tuner, and it like, I don't know if I wore down the frets on the A string a little extra. I got a fret dress early, or not too long ago, and I don't know. Anyway, maybe it's an easy fix, maybe not, but I gotta go to Maine for a month pretty soon here, so I don't know if I'm gonna get it fixed or just play slightly out of tune for a month. All right, let's see. All right, Andy, good to see you. Says there's a bluegrass jam in Waconia, Minnesota. Is that Minnesota? Montana. I always get all the M's mixed up, and I grew up in one. I think Minnesota. That's my best guess. And thank you, Andy, also for the super chat. Ooh, Liberty. I could definitely do Liberty. Appreciate the super chats, and there's a bunch of patrons in the chat here who support me on Patreon. There's links in the description. You can also do small donations through PayPal. There's some merch links, all that sort of stuff. Greatly appreciated, not required, but helps me do these live streams and put out new lessons every week. All right, so Liberty, you say? No, that's St. Ansriel. Is this Liberty? That could be Soldier's Joy too. If that's Soldier's Joy, I'll figure out what Liberty is and do that too. I always get those two tunes mixed up. Liberty and Soldier's Joy. Oh, I think that is Liberty, because Soldier's Joy is... Right? Always second guessing myself. Barbara asks, can I watch this later? I've got to run. No problem. Yes, you can watch it later. These are always, if you subscribe to the channel or just like come back to the YouTube channel and click under like the live, there's sort of like uploads and then shorts and then live. You can see all of these lives are always there. You can also check out, if you go to my website, MandoLessons.com, you can, there's a link on the side that says live Q&A, and you click on that, and there's actually not only a link to a playlist that I should probably update with all of these latest live streams, but there's also some resources made by our very own Denise, who I don't know if she's here or not, or will get here at some point. We'll find out. But she has a great thing where you sort of has it all categorized and linked up so you can go to different topics. Ooh, great questions to the chat. I like that. Asking questions to everyone else in the chat. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm lost. I'm utterly lost in the chat here. Yeah, that would be that'd be one meetup, huh? Yeah, meeting everybody. I wish I could. That would be amazing. Probably kind of overwhelming, but yeah. Mighty Poplar. Oops, kicking mics. One of my favorite groups of the moment. I've listened to that record probably more than any other record in the last 6 months. And I'm not like, I don't know, bluegrass is not really my thing most of the time. I grew up playing bluegrass. I love bluegrass, but it's not where I spend a lot of my listening and playing time these days. But Mighty Poplar, they've kind of got me back into it. So somebody somewhere somebody asked, okay, there we go. Betsy said, group question, what made you choose the mandolin? We got some great answers in here. Depending on how many people answer, I may not read them out, so check the chat. But I love that idea of throwing out chats to the question. Jim says, love the added bass thump of the open oval hole Ellis. I'll get that out for you. Yeah, I love this mandolin. There's so many mandolins in so little time. Probably needs a little tuning touch up. This one might. I also will see if this one has the intonation issue. I don't think it does. I do love this mandolin. Catch up with the chat while I tune up here. Oh, nice. Awesome. Ursonaut says, your tech says truss route adjustment is no charge. That is a kind offer. Perry says, hey, what are the strings supposed to sound like? I got a mandolin yesterday and got the bridge, and I've got it tuned up to GDAE, but it sounds a little high. That's a hard thing to kind of suss out over the internet, but I mean, it should sound like this, I guess. If your mandolin, like if you just play the open strings, I don't know if you got it next to you or you can come back when you do. That should be the tuning. So it's G on the lowest string, or the string closest to your head. The lowest pitch string is G, then D, and then A, and then E. All right, let's see. Ursonaut says, my outer E string seems to be trying to imitate a banjo. Gotten a weird twang to it. Looks really close to the frets. Yeah, often what'll happen, I don't know if I'll be able to get this in view, but like the nut will wear down, especially on the E strings, because they kind of like slowly cut through the nut, and then the E string gets really close to that first fret as the nut, kind of diminishes this way, gets close to that first fret, and then you get this buzz that can be really irksome. But that's also something that your tech could probably help you out with. And it could be a truss rod thing. If like the truss rod is doing this, if the neck is doing this, then that's going to make the strings closer to the nut at this end. And if it's going this way, that's probably not the issue. But your tech it sounds like your tech knows what's up, which is good. All right, let's see. Catching up. And it says, don't think I'll ever get your fingers to move as fast as you play. Well, speed isn't everything. There's a lot of good music out there that isn't fast. And the funny thing is, the more you play, the quicker your fingers get, and at some point, you may just find like, oh wait, hey, I can keep up with stuff that I never thought I could. And that's how it sort of happened to me. Repetition is a big part of it. Got a little coffee sludge on that sip. All right, let's see. Catch up with. Hey, we got Joan from Barcelona. Excellent. I was in Barcelona once. It's a beautiful, beautiful city, and I hope to go back someday. Nice. Barbara's still here. Love it. Gotta mandolins first. I like that life outlook. Nice. Yeah, the Mandomania. Uncle Bobby sent me a video of Mandomania. I can't remember all the people now, but it was Sam Bush, Wyatt Ellis, and a bunch of other people. It's too early to think about. But there's some. I love the sort of the bluegrass jam or bluegrass festival mandolin workshop scene where like all the mandolin players that are playing with their bands at a bluegrass festival all get together on a stage and just have a big mandolin workshop, mandolin nerd out, where everybody takes a break, things like that. Cooper says, wanting to build a guitar box mandolin, do you have any tips? Do you know where I could get certain pieces for it? What I would recommend is go on Mandolin Cafe, mandolincafe.com if you're unfamiliar, and there's a whole forum section, and in the forum there's a whole section dedicated to people who build mandolins. I like the sound of a cigar box mandolin. I bet somebody in there can help you figure out the best way to do it and source parts and all that sort of stuff. All right, let's see. Got Jeffrey in the chat. Good to see you. Let's see. Dan says, I was given an old 09 Gibson A Oval. Like a 1909? That's early. That's cool. That's fun. The first mandolin I ever played was also an old Gibson A that a friend had when I was at their house, and the self-titled Nickel Creek album had just come out in the year 2000-ish. And I was like, what is that instrument? With Chris Thiele playing the Fox. And my friend was like, oh, that's a mandolin. I've got one. And pulled out his old Gibson from the teens and showed me some chords. And that was the beginning of the end. Hey, we got Lewis. Welcome. All right, I'm going to try to keep up with the chat here. Do you know the song Leaves from the Wine from Avatar? I don't know that song. I love Avatar. I've just been talking to my partner that we should watch Avatar again. It's a great show, and it's been many years since we've watched it now. Yeah, Ursula says reaching around the body of a dreadnought really wrenches my shoulder in terms of like playing big guitars. That's why I like little guitars, because I've also got the belly. These little guitars don't put as much strain on your shoulder. Whereas like I feel like playing a dreadnought, my arm's like out here, but much more. Anyway. Wow, this is amazing. The chat. I'll do my best not to just like spend the whole time reading the chat, and I'll try to get some tunes in here too. I'm gonna do but I love it when the chat goes quicker than I can keep up with. Nice. Yeah, the person. I'm getting everybody's. I want to read everybody's stories, but then it just makes me sitting here reading in front of you all. I'll come back and read these after the chat. All right. Yeah, little guitars. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of little guitars. Nice. Yeah, that's a good thing to do, Lou. I'm starting to go down that in the last like week too, to just sort of, take all the tunes that I know, or the ones I can remember that I know anyway, and just, work on playing them the best I can. Instrument lending libraries are amazing. I've known of a couple over the years. There's one in Mid-Coast, Maine. If anyone's up there, shoot me an email and I think the Searsport library in Maine has a lending library associated with it of instruments. My buddy does all sort of like the instrument upkeep on them. I don't know the current status, but I imagine there's still some resources out there. Yeah, smaller guitars are. I was gonna say smaller guitars are huge. Yeah, this is sort of like the smallest. So this is a Martin single O. Well, it's actually not a Martin; it's a Collings, but it's based on the Martin sort of historical design of the single O. So essentially, with guitars, the more O's you get, the bigger the guitar gets. So a single O. So this is an 018 because it's a single O body, a small body, and the 18 means mahogany back and sides, whereas a 28 would be rosewood back and sides. So single O, and then double O is a little bit wider, triple O is a little wider, and then dreadnought is the biggest of them all. And then, so this is sort of the smallest of the regular size guitars, because then you get into sort of parlor guitars that are very small. But this one is sort of still considered like not a parlor, so not like a shrunken guitar. It's just like the smallest of the regular sized. It's not a tiny house, it's just a small regular house. Nice. Yeah, definitely try banjo. Yeah, Jeleth, geez, I'm probably not saying your name right, said, I thought smaller guitars were inferior, but now I've realized that's certainly not the case. I felt the same way for a long time, too. Like, bigger is better. And I've got a dreadnought, but I only ever want to play this thing. And again, this, like, kind of depends on the music. If you want to be, like, a bluegrass guitar player, taking solos and all that sort of stuff, dreadnoughts are helpful because they're loud and they project a lot and you can really push them hard. But, for me, I play a lot of like old time backup, so I'm usually just playing chords. Or if you're singing, this is a great, you don't need to be super powerful to back yourself up on a song. And this thing can still project. I don't really do much of that, but I wish I had more opportunities to, because I do like picking out tunes on the guitar, but it definitely doesn't feel as comfortable as mandolin. Yeah, finger picking, especially, yeah, a lot of people like smaller guitars for sort of finger picking-y stuff. Jim has a good question. Do you think an octave mandolin can fill the shoes of a guitar? I would say, in my opinion, not really. I mean, the thing about an octave mandolin is it's in the same range as a guitar. So like the G string of the low octave of an octave mandolin is like the third fret of a 6-string guitar. It's a G, so it's the third fret on the low E string. So it's kind of in the same range as a guitar. But for me, the sort of the timbre, the tone of the instrument is so different. Like guitars are so smooth and warm and lush, and tenor and octave mandolins are pretty kind of strident. But that said, if it's, so I would say, if there's like a guitar and a mandolin, and you replace the guitar with an octave mandolin, that's sort of, they both have, the mandolin and the octave mandolin share that sort of kind of bright, strident sound. But maybe you're backing up a fiddle player, so the fiddle's got that nice warm sound, and then, you've got more of a sparkly backup instrument. So I think they can certainly work in the same range as the guitar, but I definitely I think of guitar as being warm and lush and kind of filling out the bottom range in a way that the octave mandolin doesn't. But that said, there's great, like, I don't know, you watch like Tim O'Brien, he plays some killer octave mandolin, and I think, try it out, figure out what sort of musical contexts things works, octave mandolins work for you. Like, it kind of just depends on what you like the sound of. So try them all out and see what you like. What I will say is what's closer to that shoes of the guitar is the tenor guitar. All right. If you want to fill out the sort of range of the guitar in mandolin tuning, this is sort of mandolin. This is G, D, A, D, so it's not quite E, but this has got, I can play all those standard. So that's got the warmth of the regular guitar, but the tuning of a mandolin, which could be an option for you. All right, I'll catch up with the chat again here. Ooh, cool, nice. Andy says, picked up the mandolin because I wanted to get better at flat picking and just never put it down. You're not the only one there. A lot of people pick up the mandolin for some like alternate reason, like they play another instrument. I know a lot of fiddle players who are like, I'll just try the mandolin because I have like a certain like shoulder thing for a little while, and then they're like, wait, mandolin's fun, and never go back. But the more instruments, the merrier. And Andy said the Blackbird hornpipe hooked me on fiddle tunes. I haven't played that tune in a long time. I recently learned there's an old time version. I can't remember. A friend of mine plays an old time version of the Blackbird hornpipe that's related. It's an Irish tune in my mind. But a cool old time Blackbird. I don't know it. But at some point I hope to. See, Blackbird hornpipe. a little bit of a blackbird hornpipe. There's a bunch of tunes in the Irish tradition called the blackbird. There's multiple blackbird hornpipes, but that's one of the ones. That's the one that I know the best. There's a couple others that I can kind of follow. Maybe that's not even the blackbird you were thinking of, Andy. But there's the one that was in my head. Ursina says, love to get my hands in on the Octave. They're fun. Keep an eye out if you ever see like they've kind of gotten more expensive, but the Eastman MDO 305s. There was a glorious point back in the good old days where you could find one of those used for like $500. I think that maybe is a little under what they're out there for now, but they're good instruments. Uncle Bobby says, I found a 30s. Yeah, I found a 30s Vega tenor banjo. Yeah, tenor banjos are very fun. Yeah, Ursina says, I guess there's I think talking about playing electric guitars and stuff. A tendency when playing electric guitars for people to cover mistakes with reverb. Yeah, I've sort of practiced. I play a little bit of electric stuff, and especially with like pedal steel, there's this whole sort of tradition of really kind of adding a lot of reverb to the sound. But I've sort of purposefully not put too much reverb on my pedal steel because I feel like if I put enough, just everything sounds good. And it's like, well, okay, so slip through there, and whoop, didn't mean to do that, but the reverb kind of puts a nice shine on everything. Or all the other sort of, I definitely am guilty of that. I've got too many effects pedals and make crazy sounds that makes it so I don't really need to know how to play electric instruments. So yeah, practicing without reverb or sort of like, I think that can extend back to acoustic instruments too, like identifying what the things you're doing in your own playing that sort of is a way for you to kind of gloss over some sort of technical issue. Like I think for me, one of those things is just my kind of tendency to throw in too many double stops, because if I always kind of keep my hands in double stop shapes, it's a lot of sound. It kind of hides the melody a little bit. And then I don't have to be super strong on the melody. So that's, and as I was talking earlier, trying to get back to just straight melody stuff for a little here. All right, I am way falling behind on the chat, I think. Okay, let me see. Wow, this is amazing. I love this chat, but I definitely can't keep up. If I missed a question in there, definitely put it back out because I'm getting a little lost. Jim says, how about a song accompaniment on Octave? That, I think, works well, especially, if it's, song accompaniment is great because, again, it's a different thing than guitars. It's like you're putting a nice sparkly sound underneath it. But a lot of nice opportunities for little kind of melodic moments. This 9-pound hammer, it's a little too heavy for my side, Roll on, buddy, roll so slow. Can I roll when the wheels won't go? Long way to Harlem, long way to Hazard. Get a little bruise, Roll on, buddy, won't you roll so slow? Can I roll when the wheels won't go? So it's got that sort of sparkly sound. Maybe has the ability to kind of overtake if you're not careful with your volume. But it's a great way, Octave mandolins definitely have a big range of sort of how much sonic damage they can do. I don't I say that kind of jokingly, but I don't know, that was pretty quiet. This 9-pound hammer, I'm playing pretty quiet. Heavy for my side, for my side. Like if I played as hard as I can, roll on, buddy, roll so slow. How can I roll? The wheels won't go. Kind of swallows up the melody. But yeah, as long as you're listening, it all works. And especially, you know, if there's a guitar and an octave mandolin, sometimes I'll capo up the octave mandolin, or maybe the guitar player will be capoed up high. I'll try to like be in a different sonic range than other instruments. And sometimes you'll see that with, like, I don't know, you watch Gillian Welch and David Rawlings. They both play guitar, but are often kind of capoed in different spots. So, you know, maybe Gillian will be down low, playing out of like G position. This isn't a guitar, so I can't do it, but you know, she's playing G, C, D down here, and then David will be capoed, whatever it would be, capo 5 playing out of D chords or something, or capo 7 playing out of C, just to be in a different sonic range and try to stay off each other's toes, musical toes. What is flat picking? Flat picking is most basically playing through the strings with a flat pick. So what we do on a mandolin every day is, that's kind of a fun shot. Yeah, playing with a flat pick versus, like, so flat picking is this. And finger picking is. And I think, so that's sort of like the most basic difference. I think in some ways, some people use the term flat picking as a way to say, like, picking a melody with a flat pick. But for me, I use the term more broadly as, like, am I flat picking? Whether I'm playing chords or melody, am I using a flat pick or am I using my fingers? All right, let's see. Nice. Glad that was the Blackbird you were looking for, Andy. I love that tune. All right, let's see. Charles says, I also switched to mandolin a couple years ago due to arm problems on guitar. Not uncommon. MandoLessons got you started. So glad to hear that. Recently added the Mandola to the mix, but tutorials are a bit scarce. Yeah, Mandola is a niche enough instrument that I guess it, like, yeah, mandolas are tricky. Because, like, I think the way that I approach it, which is not the only way to approach the instrument, and the way I approach it definitely requires me to, like, have some mandolin knowledge. But at first what I would do, like, your fingers know all the stuff to do on a mandola. You just need to kind of grapple with the larger size of the instrument and grapple with the sort of conceptual idea of, like, what key am I actually playing in? Because when your fingers play a G scale, you say, there's the G scale that I know from the mandolin. You're actually playing in C. So that's not going to work if you know a tune in the key of G, and you play it on if you play Girl I Left Behind Me. Don't worry about this high E string. I'm pretending it's not there. So there's the Girl I Left Behind Me, but it's in a key that nobody else plays in. Like, people don't play Girl I Left Behind Me in C, they play it in G. So then you got to say, okay, well, how do I get that to come out in G on the mandola? And then you say, okay, well, let's see. If my G is C, you know what I'm saying? Well, let's see. Let's do it with the instrument. Like, my G string, so the mandola is C, G, D, A. And again, we're not thinking about that high string. It doesn't exist. It's all in your imagination. So you're saying, okay, I'm playing in G on my G string, Or like there's my G string, but I'm actually, whatever I play in G is coming out in C. So if I want something to come out in G, I need to play in D. Because if I play a D chord, the notes that are actually coming out are D, G, D, B, which is the G chord. So you sort of start doing this, it's called transposing. And like trumpet players do it all the time, and a lot of horn players, you hear people talking about like B-flat instruments. And those are instruments where like if you play what feels like a C chord, or sorry, a C scale, it's kind of coming out in B-flat. So you're kind of doing that idea on a mandola. So, you know, I'd say, okay, well, I want to play Girl I Left Behind Me, but now I know I can't play it in G because it comes out in C. So you say, okay, I got to play in D to come out in G. So you can think about it with the strings. Like, if I want to, like, this tune is in G, so you find your G string, and you can go one string towards the floor is the key that you need to play in order for the tune to come out in the key you want. So you say, okay, the tune is in G, but because I'm on a mandola, I need it to be in the key of one string closer to the floor, which is D. So then, let's see, how does it start? It starts in normal life, it goes G, F sharp, E, D. So it starts on the root of the chord, or of the tune, of the scale, sorry, and kind of goes down from there. So that's the wrong key. So now I need to do that in the key of D. So where's a D note in? So there's a D, because we have C, G, D, A, B, C sharp, D. So if I'm playing that on the mandola and you're playing it on the mandolin, it's now coming out in the same key. So in the key of D, and it starts on the root and goes down. That's often the hardest part for me, is like figuring out those first couple notes and figuring out what scale I'm in, all that sort of thing. And it's sort of like a moment of like, oh, I'm lost, I don't know where I am. And then it's like, oh, I'm using what I know as like a D scale and stuff like that. And as you do it, that transposition in your brain becomes faster and faster until you no longer are doing that transposition. You just look at a mandola and you put your fingers down and you say, okay, I put my fingers down in a C chord. You don't say, okay, that's a G chord, but it's a mandola, so it's a C chord. So if I want a G chord, then I need to play a D chord, and that'll come out in G. That's a mouthful. It's helpful because we're coming from the mandolin, but it really, the more you play the mandola, the more it becomes its own instrument, and the less it becomes sort of connected in our brains to mandolin. So we end up stopping, and it took me a long time. It's like you really need to spend some dedicated time with a mandola to get to that point. And I feel like I'm at that point most of the time, but if I don't pick up the mandola for a long time, it takes a little while to get back into it. So there's a little mandola primer. Because it is hard. Like there's, I can't even remember who asked the question anymore. Somebody asked the question, like mandola is tricky because there's not that many resources. Yeah, so my recommendation is like, know that you know all the stuff from mandolin, and you can use that all on the mandola. You can just play the mandola as if it's mandolin. It'll come out in the wrong key, but it sounds great. That'll get you used to like the physical aspect of playing a slightly larger instrument. And then there's sort of the transposition side of things that takes a little bit to kind of wrap your head around. But, you know, use tunes that you already know. Say, okay, I'm going to use Girl I Left Behind Me, or Road to Boston is in D. So now if it's in D, I need to be playing as if it's in A. So my brain is sort of thinking in, oh, wait, no. Sorry, that was my bad. There's my A chord, which is actually D. Anyway, it shouldn't be overwhelming, but it is something that it sounds harder conceptually than it is. Sometimes you just gotta change keys until you find the right one. Hopefully that's helpful. Eldon from Israel, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Do you find yourself changing the length of your leash, so we generally call it strap, according to sitting or standing? That is a very good question. So my preference is to not change it, because what I like to do when I have the instrument in my, I'll pick up a mandolin here. My preference when I'm playing mandolin is to use a strap. Like, it's very helpful because then you can take your hands off the instrument and it still works. I prefer to, like, if I back up a little bit here, I play with the instrument not in my lap, like it doesn't sit in my lap like this. It's always just hanging, so that when I'm sitting, it's right here, and I'm not doing this, and then when I stand up, it goes lower. Just so that it feels the same sitting and standing, Like, nothing is changing above my hips, if that makes sense. And I think that's a good way, because for a long time I played with the instrument in my lap, like sort of in my lap a little bit with the strap, and then I would stand up and the strap would move, and it made playing standing up, which I do a lot less than sitting down, a lot more tiring. So I got into the habit of playing with the instrument off my lap when I'm sitting, so that when I stand up, it's the same distance. And that's my recommendation for people. Everybody does it a little different, but give that a try. How about playing LNN Rag? Oh, I don't need to. Well, I should actually keep an eye on that. Oh, it's, well, whatever. I'll play a little LNN Rag here for Lewis, one of my favorite tunes. How does this go? LNN Rag. Yeah. Nope, that's Tennessee Mountain Fox Chase. LNN Rag. There it is. It's a great old-time tune in the key of C. It's got 2 parts, but it's kind of crooked, and it's got a lot of chords. Have I done a lesson on this one? I don't know. We'll find out. Somebody will know. That was a little sloppy. All right, let's see. I'll catch up with these last few chats here. We're already at the end of the hour. So I'll do a little lightning round through the chats, and we'll play a little Road to Boston, and then send you on your way. I don't believe there's any Heat and Jam today, unfortunately, but I'll be back soon enough, I'm sure. All right. Bouzouki. Yes, Bouzoukis are fun. I'll give you a little Bouzouki sound test. This thing's in tune-ish. Bouzouki's are nice. They're, I would say, closer to, they're pretty much, they have a sound more similar to an octave mandolin, but they kind of smooth out some of that kind of harshness. And I use harsh in a good way. Some of that sort of strident sound by using this kind of open tuning where rather than G, D, A, E, use G, D, A, D, and that really smooths things out so you can use those kind of drones a lot more. And there is the bouzouki sound. All right, so let's see. Yeah, there's definitely a thing with longer neck instruments and shoulders. It definitely takes some figuring out. I had a lot of trouble with like banjo and bouzouki and guitar for a long time. And just figuring out a way, to not have to feel like you need to play like this, because that puts so much strain on my shoulder, and I played like that forever. And just sort of figuring out a way to keep your elbow much more down at your side. You can play around with like where the instrument sits here, like on this axis, to get it kind of closer in. All right, no lesson on L and N. All right, maybe I'll do that someday. That's a corker of a tune. Cooper says, I used a 1927 Mandolin and don't want to poke a hole in it to put a strap on it. So with Mandolins, what you can do, when I stand up, I sort of press it against my chest. I'll use this tenor banjo as an example, but what I do, I don't actually have one on this, but you can put a strap right through these, like kind of the, I don't know if I can make this work. Yeah, like right kind of through here. You can get a strap through there, no problem. And then it holds up. So I usually kind of strap up a banjo. Well, I'll show you. So this is a 5-string banjo, but we'll get the idea through. So I've got one strap down here, kind of on the second bracket before the neck hits. And then the other strap is around, I guess it's around 2 down here, but it doesn't really matter. And this is actually, what are these called? Neotech straps? I can't honestly remember, but they have these little clips. Let me see if I can do this way. So like this is on there, but it's just a matter of unclipping this, and then you can loop that through and then clip it in, and you get a banjo strap solution. So I think if you look up Neotech, Neotech, banjo strap, that'll bring up something that could work for you. All right, my lightning round is going terribly, but I'm having fun. Dan says, I like the mention of songs that you've done lessons on. I then print it while we were watching and then learn it the next week. Amazing. I add it to my loose leaf notebook. Awesome. Cool. Love it. That's a great idea. Yeah, I've been trying to figure out a way, like, I want to continue to do fiddle tunes because that's sort of my main love and interest. But I've done hundreds at this point, and it sort of feels like, doing another fiddle tune is great, but I've done a lot at this point, so it's not always the most like exciting thing for me to do. But I was like trying to figure out some way to like suggest tunes that I've like already done that maybe people haven't done, because I don't know anyone that's learned every tune off my website at this point. There was someone like maybe 10 years ago who's like, hey, I've learned every tune on your website. There probably is somebody out there that's learned every tune on my website. If so, let me know and I'll send you a prize. But yeah, sort of figuring out a way to suggest tunes to people because there's so many in the back catalog. So I like Dan's solution for that. Ursula says, can you do a lesson on using drones and how to choose what notes to use? Definitely. So there's already a couple. What I would do is go, I'm going to walk myself through this. But I go to my website, MandoLessons.com, lessons, what is it going to be under? Techniques and fundamentals, I believe. And then, so at the bottom of the technique and fundamentals section, there's one called double stop series. It's a 4-part. There's using open strings, fretting double stops, thinking about chords, and the theory behind double stops. That first lesson is really all about saying like, oh, you're in the key of G? Try using a G string to drone. And here's some other options too. So I would say watch that one if you haven't already. The intermediate series also goes through some of that stuff. It's a little more involved. But yeah, poke around. There's also some lessons on, let's see, where is it? There's one on like 2-string, oh yeah, still under technique and fundamentals, under chords, there's a bunch of lessons on 2-string chords, key of D, G, and A, and those are going to be pretty much the same finger moves as kind of drones behind tunes, if that helps, or if that makes sense. Cool, awesome. Well, I think I'm finally more or less caught up, so let's play a little bit of whatever the tune of the week is. Road to Boston, and then I'll send you on your merry way to continue playing mandolin all weekend. So, I'll pick a nice moderate tempo. Try to pick up whatever you can. If you don't know the tune, see if you can just like kind of try to mimic what I'm doing and pick up a note here and there. That's the nice thing about these is you will not take me off the rails because I can't hear you. So now is a great time to make a lot of mistakes. I plan on making a lot of mistakes. And if you know the tune, maybe try to back me up with the chords. The chords are D, G, and A. See, try to like mess around with those, see if you can find where they sound good or not. And yeah, we'll go with it. And yeah, Betsy says next tune suggestions. Yeah, while we're playing this, feel free to suggest tunes that we should do next week and something that's off my website and that we haven't done in a while, and I'll reference and we'll figure it out at the end. So I'll start with the melody. You play chords. You start out on the D chord, like maybe right here. Here we go. A chord, D, A, D, A, D, A, back to D. Stay on D. Here's a G chord, D, A, D. Still on D. Here comes that G chord, D, A. Take it. Here's the B part. You play the chords. B part. Yeah. Me too. Play it one more time. Everybody play the melody. I'll play some harmony. Here comes the B part. I was getting myself a little confused about the harmony there. That's a weird too. My go-to harmony for the A part sounds like the melody of the B part, because the melody of the A part, so the classic kind of third above harmony for the harmony geeks out there would be, but that also sounds like the B part. So that always kind of messes with my brain a little bit. All right, next tune suggestions. Over the Waterfall. That's a great one. Let's see when the last time we did that was, but feel free to throw other suggestions out there. Jim says, Joe Walsh did a lesson that showed the 1-4-5 progression for double stops. I think the lesson was I'll Fly Away. Cool. Ursula says, I think I need to learn more music theory. Either way, I mean, it's helpful, but know that, like, at the beginning, any little tidbit, it's kind of a steep learning curve, but any little tidbit of music theory that you learn is extremely useful. It doesn't mean you need to do it, but like, even if it's just the fact of asking yourself, like, hey, what key am I playing in? That's something that I need to do on a lot of instruments, because I get a capo on there, I'm playing pedal steel, and the bar is just way up the neck, and I'm like, I don't know what key I'm in. I can sort of like falter my way through the chord changes, but yeah, kind of just saying like, hey, what key am I in, or what note am I playing, or what chords are happening here, and hey, can I turn this into, like, can I figure out what the chords are and go like, okay, D, 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 A, and back to D. Can I now call that 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 5, and back to 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 5, and back to 1. And the B part is D, 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 G, 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 D, 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 A, and back to D. And turn it to numbers, you get 1, 1, 1, 1, and 4, 4, 4, 4, and 1, 1, 1, 5, and back to 1. Sort of that stuff, and kind of saying what you're doing is maybe the best way that I know to get. I'm liking the way that I'm thinking about this. Thank you for that thought, Ursanos. Just, yeah, like saying what you're doing, putting a name to things, whether it's like, okay, this starts, what note does this tune start on? What is that? Oh, it's an F sharp. Like, how high does it go in that B part? Well, it starts on the A, and it goes up to that B. And just like, you know, naming the notes that you're hitting that are of interest to you, naming the chords, seeing if you can turn them into 1, 4, 5, kind of Nashville number system. All that sort of stuff is going to be super helpful. Lewis says, see you tomorrow. That's right, because tomorrow, for any patrons still here, I know I'm way over, people are probably filtering out at this point, but for anyone who's supports me on Patreon at $5 a month or more, there's a once a month Patreon live stream, which is a lot like this, except the chat doesn't go as fast, so I can actually dive deeper into more kind of personalized questions and kind of, you know, get a little further down the rabbit hole on some of these rather than trying to keep up with the chat. So that's happening tomorrow. Check if you're on Patreon. It's not too late, so you could always sign up at the $5 a month or more level, and you will get access to the link for tomorrow's live stream. Thank you all so much for hanging. Oh, wait, we need to pick a tune. I honestly don't know when the next time there will be a live stream is, because I have a gig next week, and then I will be in Maine for a month. So it might not be until July, which is a little sad. But maybe if I've got some free time one of those days, I'll be hanging out with Noah some, or we could maybe do a little live stream. That would be fun. But let's go with Over the Waterfall. I think. Let me just make sure we didn't do that like last week. And it might not be until July. So y'all gotta play a lot of music while I'm gone. And come back with some tunes for me to learn. What are we looking at? Over the Waterfall. Episode 114 was the latest. What is this? Episode 150 or something like that? I'm gonna pick something else. Let's do. Oh, there's got to be something classic in here that we haven't actually done. Ooh, let's do La Bastring. That's a great tune, a great French Canadian tune. Kind of like Road to Boston. How does La Bastring go? Oh no. And the B part does this fun thing. Or you can get fancy. Great tune. So I'll write it out for anyone who, like me, doesn't speak French. So it's La Bastring. And yeah, it doesn't always look like it's gonna sound, but at least in my brain. So let's do that one next time I'm here. It's on my website. It's a classic tune. You'll probably meet a lot of folks who know it out in the world, even if they don't play a lot of French Canadian music. It's like one of the most popular French Canadian tunes and a good entry point. So let's do that, just because we've never done that one, and we've done Over the Waterfall 3 or 4 times now. We did it so there's a website play along jam. We did it episode 45, part 2 apparently. Thank you, Denise. And episode 114 on Over the Waterfall. And La Bastring has got no love, so let's do that. That's all. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a great month. If I don't see you, but of course, patrons, I'll see you tomorrow, and I'll be in touch about June MandoLessons Patreon live streams. All right. Have a good weekend, y'all. See you soon.